It is almost fall, and as I make this video, fall officially starts tomorrow. So I thought that it would be a good idea to show you guys how to make this really fast and easy cream cheesy chicken chili. This is a favorite for Dan and I, but we're not just going to be making it. I'm also going to show you how I'm going to freeze dry this. And then once it's freeze dried, I'm going to show you how it rehydrates so you can compare what it was like before to what it's like after it rehydrates. You guys, I love fall. Fall is awesome. I love the crisp in the air. I love the colors. So let me show you how to make cream cheesy chicken chili. So we've got a 5-quart pot here, and we're just gonna toss everything into this 5-quart pot. Now you can use you can use 2 chicken breasts that have been pre-cooked, or you can use what I'm using, which is faster and easier. And this is chunk chicken breast. And I'm just going to shred this up kind of as I put it in there. This is a 15-ounce can of drained whole kernel corn. Next is a can of Rotel. If you don't have Rotel, it's just a mixture of diced tomatoes and green chilies, and the Rotel is just the brand. So if you can find like a 10-ounce can of diced tomatoes and green chilies, we're not going to drain those. Next, we have 2 cups of chicken broth. The recipe calls for 2 cups, but I always just use this is a 14.5 ounce can of chicken broth. Now we have a can of black beans that have been rinsed, drained and rinsed. We have a cup of bacon pieces. Everything's better with bacon, right? So 1 cup of bacon pieces, and if you want to, you can just cook your own bacon and then crumble it up to make a cup. That's fine. Now for our spices. This is 1 ounce of ranch seasoning. That's the same as just a regular packet you can buy of ranch seasoning and salad dressing mix. I make my own, so I just measured out 1 ounce. We're putting in a tablespoon of chili. Now we're doing a teaspoon of cumin. Ooh, that's a little much. We're also putting in a teaspoon of onion powder. So any onion powder that you have. Ooh, boy, I'm poor happy today. Maybe just a tad more. We like onion. Now I'm going to stir this up. This recipe involves cream cheese and cheddar cheese. Now we're going to add in an 8-ounce block of cream cheese, and I'm just going to kind of chunk this in here. We don't want it in a blob. We want it to melt well. So now we're going to put it on our burner. I've grabbed my canning burner. I'm going to set it on a medium heat. And what we're looking for is just for it the cheese to be melted and for it to be simmering. So we want it to be hot and bubbly. Okay, we are hot and bubbly now, and I did let it simmer just a couple minutes to make sure everything was heated through and that there were no chunks of cream cheese left in it. So now we're going to take this off the heat. Our next step is to add in shredded cheddar cheese. I like the extra sharp cheddar cheese. The original recipe was 1 cup, but I like it pretty cheesy, so I have 1.5 cups here of extra sharp cheddar cheese. It smells so good. I wish you were in my kitchen right now to smell this. The shredded cheese melts pretty fast. So now it is ready to dish up and serve. But we're not going to be eating this pot. This one I'm going to freeze dry. So what we're going to do is just prop a lid on here and let this cool a little bit. And after it cools a little bit, I'm going to show you how to put it on my freeze drying trays. We have a medium size freeze dryer. It's a Harvest Right freeze dryer. It comes in a small and then what they call standard, which is a medium. And then there's also a large freeze dryer you can purchase. These are the trays that come with. So there's 4 of these. There's 4 shelves in the freeze dryer. So we're going to measure this out because I know that a ladle, 2 ladles, is about what we would want for a meal for each one of us. So we're going to see how much we can fit in our trays. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go with 4 just because now I know that this tray will be 2 servings or 1 meal for Dan and I. With my leftovers, I got 3 full trays. I want to do a full load though. I never like to do like 1 or 2 trays because I need to make the most of running my freeze dryer. So I am going to be adding something else in there, which I will show you in a minute. I do want to talk about these lids. These are lids that you can purchase as an accessory to your freeze dryer. The freeze dryer comes with the 4 trays, but the medium one, but it does not come with the lids that go on the trays. Now the great thing about these trays is, according to Harvest Right, you can actually use these for freeze drying as well. So with the lid, you actually have 8 trays and they have a divider. So if you wanted to portion something up in here, you could do that. Now with freeze drying, it's best to pre-freeze everything in the tray. Then it won't take as long in the freeze dryer because it will already be frozen. It won't have to go through that full freezing cycle. And these lids also help to stack things in the freezer when you're going to do the pre-freezing. Now I want to show you another little trick I've learned. I'm a member of a freeze drying group on Facebook and I love reading their posts. What they discovered is that you can freeze things in quart bags. Just put it on a flat surface and freeze it. This one wasn't exactly flat, but just put it on a flat surface and freeze it. 2 of these will fit pretty well in 1 tray. So now here is some cheese potato soup. When you're doing a freeze drying load, you want to always freeze dry things that are similar. So like for example, if you're freeze drying peppers with strawberries, then your strawberries are probably going to have a teensy bit of a peppery taste to them. So you always want to freeze dry like foods. It comes out of the bag pretty easy. So now these are going to go in the freezer for at least 24 hours. Probably better to do 48, but we're gonna put them in for 24 hours, and then we'll come back and I'll show you some of the things about the freeze dryer and put them in. Okay, it's actually been 48 hours. I did go ahead and do a 48-hour pre-freeze. Sometimes schedules just don't work out. I'm sure you can relate. But we're gonna go ahead and get our freeze dryer ready now. And since this is the first freeze drying video that I'm doing on our channel, I'm going to kind of explain it a little more than I will in future videos for freeze drying. So here is our freeze dryer. I have turned it on, and you can see the opening screen when you turn it on. This is going to need to pre-freeze the chamber or prepare the chamber for 15 minutes before we can put anything in. So we're going to go ahead and press start. Internal temperature right now is 70, and it's going to take that down so that we can go ahead and add frozen trays to it. Now you see that there is a little bit of noise. I would say that when the vacuum pump kicks in to create the vacuum in the chamber, it's not as loud as a vacuum cleaner. We can keep our bedroom door shut, which is right off of this kitchen area. We can keep our bedroom door shut and still have no problem sleeping in the next room. But that's definitely something that you want to consider, is the placement of your freeze dryer, because there is a certain level of noise. Let's go ahead and talk about how I am going to keep track of my trays and how I'm going to know how much water that it's going to need to rehydrate. So I want to show you the log that I have made. This is a very simple freeze drying log that I made just for my own purposes in Excel. And there's a space here to say what the tray contents are, and I've numbered my trays with a Sharpie, so I have tray numbers 1 through 4, what is in them. I also have the start weight in grams. What you want to do is make sure that you have a scale that can weigh your trays in grams, because that's what we're going to use to know if we've gotten out all of the water that needs to be gotten out, if it's totally dry or not. Now, some people will just feel of it and see if there's any cold spots or see if it feels dry. But if I'm going to store this for long term and I'm going to take all this time to freeze dry this food, I'm going to make sure that it's dry. So we're going to take the weight in grams of each tray and we're going to write it here. And then once my batch is completely finished, I will then write the final weight in grams of each tray here. This is for extra dry time, which I'll explain in a bit. This is for total dry time, so I can get an idea of, if I do this again, about how long it will take. And then of course we've got the date that we're processing this batch. So let's go ahead and pull our trays out of the freezer and get these weighed so that when our freeze dryer is ready, we are also ready to put our trays in. I made a special spot in the top drawer of my upstairs freezer that these trays will fit perfectly in. You want to make sure that you're weighing these about the same every single time, no leaning on the table or anything like that. So this tray weighs 1,599 grams. That's tray 1. So what is going to happen is that when the freeze dryer says that the freeze drying process is finished, I'm going to weigh the trays again. If there's even 1 gram of difference between those two weights, I'm going to put it back in the freeze dryer for another 2 hours of extra dry time. I want the weights to be equal. What that tells me is that it hasn't been able to pull out any more moisture or water from that food, and so it's completely dry. Okay, so as you can see, it's been 15 minutes now, and it's telling me to load my trays into the freeze dryer to make sure my drain valve is closed, and then I can continue. So let's get the trays in. So you can see now that it's cooled down to 48 degrees, and it's just going to keep going down, and it's restarted the counter so that I can see exactly how long this batch is going to take. So now we're just going to let that go in the freeze dryer until it's finished, and by the magic of video, it'll only be a few seconds for you. Okay, as you can see, this finished at 20 hours 10 minutes and 50 seconds. So this finished while I was at work today. The really nice thing about this Harvest-Right freeze dryer is it will preserve the food that's in the freeze dryer until you're ready to take it out. So right now it is sitting at minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit in the chamber because it's preserving my food. So if you try to open this up and take these trays out now, you'd probably get you may get a little freezer burn on your hands. So we are going to warm the trays. So now we're going to weigh our trays to see what they weigh after it says it was completed. So that one says 956 grams. That was tray number 1. So I'm just going to write that down. You can see it's maintained its size and shape. It doesn't look any more cooked than it was before because we're just removing moisture. It just looks dry. It is a lot less heavy. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and give it extra dry time. We're going to use 2 hours of extra dry time, and at the end of that time, if it weighs exactly the same as the weights we just took, then we know that all of the moisture is gone. Now on the freeze dryer, we're going to hit more dry time. And you can see that it'll automatically give 2 hours of extra dry time. I can adjust that with these arrows if I think it would need more or less, but we're just going to go with 2 hours and see what happens. So while it is having its extra dry time, we want to make sure that we get our bags ready, we get them labeled, we get our oxygen absorbers ready, our sealers ready, just in case they should be completely done, because we want to move quickly. If they are, it can absorb moisture from the air and the surrounding environment. We don't want that to happen. So let's talk about bags. Mylar bags are what you need to store your food for long term. Harvest-Right does provide 50 bags with your freeze dryer kit. These are the bags. And you can also buy bags online too. And you want to go for, if you're going for long-term storage, you want to make sure you buy 7 mil bags. The 7 mil refers to the thickness of the bag. That's your no less than 7 mil. The nice thing about the ones that you can buy are that you can buy the ones that are gusseted so that they stand up. That's helpful not only for when you're filling the bag, but if you want to store these on a shelf. It's much easier to store a bag that will stand up. Notice that I've prepped my bags by writing the tray number on the side there, also what it is, the date, and also how many servings are in this bag. Once I'm done packaging these, I will calculate how much hot water it will take to reconstitute this bag and I'll write that on here too. That'll make it much easier when it needs to be used. Another thing I want to share with you is about oxygen absorbers. For long-term storage, oxygen is an enemy of food, and so you can buy oxygen absorbers. You can buy them online, and you can also get 50 of those with your Rehydrate freeze dryer. Now these are measured in cc's. These are 700 cc oxygen absorbers that come with your Rehydrate freeze dryer, but you can buy many different sizes. Another thing that you notice, it's got a little orange dot here that's on like a separate card inside this package. The pinkish orange dot indicates that the oxygen absorbers are working and they're fine and there's nothing wrong with them. One of the reasons we need to work quickly when we get the food out is we don't want these oxygen absorbers to go bad or anything before we get our bags sealed. May turn a brown color after I seal it back up because it's become in contact with oxygen. But once I get it sealed, if it turns back to this pink orange, that means my seal is good and my oxygen absorbers are okay. If it doesn't turn back to a pink orange, that means I need to throw the oxygen absorbers out. But you need to give it some time to turn back to that pink orange color. It may take a little while. Another piece of equipment that we're going to use is the bag sealer. Now Rehydrate does give you a bag sealer, a good bag sealer, to seal those Mylar bags with your Rehydrate freeze dryer. This is the bag sealer that comes with it. You simply put the top of the bag on this here and then you push down. One thing you'll notice when you seal your bag and you get the oxygen absorbers in there and it's all sealed up is after a little bit of time it will sort of crinkle up and shrink around the food. That's because you know it's working then because it's absorbing the oxygen that's in this bag. Now it's not vacuum sealing it. It's not removing all the air. Air is made up of more than just oxygen. It's only removing the oxygen that could compromise your food. So it's not going to squish it down like vacuum sealing, and you can tell, you know, that it's working or it's worked. Okay, our extra dry time is done. Let's weigh our trays. 9:55. Okay, it looks like tray number 2 is completely done, but tray number 1 and number 4 still lost a gram, and tray number 3 with the cheese potato soup, it lost about 46 grams. So we're going to put trays 1, 3, and 4 back in, but we'll go ahead and package number 2, and I'll reconstitute some of it too so you can see what that's like. So if you take a look at this now, this is completely dry. It's very light, very crumbly, almost like a styrofoam-ish. And again, we want to work fairly quickly just to make sure no additional moisture gets to our food. It's almost like a really light cookie. Alright, so there you see our finished product in the bag. Okay, so we're going to cut these oxygen absorbers very close to the seal that it already has so that I have plenty of room to reseal it. So now's the time to work quickly once you get these open. I'm going to drop it in the bag, and I'm going to go over here and seal it. So we've got a good seal on our oxygen absorber bag now. You can notice now that our indicator has turned a darker color. If that doesn't come back to the orangish pinkish color, then all of these are bad. So we'll just kind of wait that out and see if that works. So now I'm just sealing the Ziploc on the bag. A Ziploc is not enough. Over time that leaks. So now we're just going to put our bag in the sealer. And the light has gone out. And I don't know if you can see it. Right across this area is the seal, and I'm going to go ahead and seal it again in another spot just to make sure we get a really good seal on there. Kind of a little insurance policy to make sure our freeze-dried food is going to be good. Alright, so now let's figure out how much water this will take to rehydrate this. The calculation really isn't that hard. It started out weighing, tray number 2 started out weighing 1,532 grams. It ended up weighing 942 grams for a difference of 590 grams. So 590 grams of water was removed from the food. So when we reconstitute it, we want to reconstitute it with 590 grams of water. Now, of course, grams is a weight, and here in the wonky US, we have ounces. All of my measuring cups for baking are in ounces, cups, that sort of thing. So we're going to convert that. A cup of water weighs 236 grams. So if I take my amount of water, 590 grams, and divide that by 236, I get 2.5. So 2.5 cups or 2.5 cups of water will reconstitute my bag. And so I'm going to go ahead and write that on the bag. Okay, I saved some out. Let's rehydrate it and see if it's like the original. So I just boiled a little bit of water in the microwave. I'm not going to pour it all in. I'm just going to pour some of it. Then we're going to let that sit. I'm going to stir it around. Might need to add a little more. I know that's going to soak it up pretty good. We're just going to let this sit for about 10 minutes or so. So after only about 5 minutes, we now have this consistency, which is exactly the consistency of when I added that into the freezer to freeze dry it. It is amazing, and all of the black beans are nice and soft. Now for the taste test. It's just like I took it out of the pot. It was absolutely delicious. Even the chicken has the consistency of the chicken when I, first took it out of the pot. It's really good. My other freeze drying videos will be faster because I'm not going to go through all the technical specs of packaging it and weighing it and all of that. So I'm excited to share more with you about freeze drying, and we hope that you have a wonderful week.